Well, hello there, my dear children of the apocalypse. How are you doing today? Welcome back to our 52 weeks of self-improvement, and welcome to perhaps the last video uploaded this year that isn't actually self-improvement based. Not really. You see, I hate Apple. I hate Apple products. I hate their ecosystem. I hate the sheep mentality of their customer base. I hate how expensive everything is, how unnecessarily complicated it is, how it's lacking customizability options, and I could go on. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been a video gamer for most of my early life, and for video games, you're not going to use Apple products. You're going to have a dedicated desktop PC, and because of it, I never really felt the need to even try the ecosystem out. But having observed people around me and seeing that the majority of people that use Apple products seem to be just regular folk who use it for, some sort of accessory. It's more of a thing to showcase. It's like you buy a nice looking car, not because you want to have a nice looking car, but because you want everybody else to know that you have a nice looking car. But obviously, as you go through life, things go through various changes. I stopped playing video games, and so I don't really use my desktop PC anymore. Now, it's great. It's big, it looks good, it's heavy, but that's kind of the problem. It's not very portable. It's not like I can take it with me, and it needs a dedicated monitor, and it needs a desk to sit on it. It needs, a dedicated keyboard and a mouse, and suddenly you have an entire setup that is there. And whilst I love my setup, it's not a very convenient thing when it comes to traveling and wanting to get stuff done on the go, or perhaps in your work office. So as most of you know, I have, in the last year, changed my job. I'm no longer working in the kitchen. I'm now working in an office space. I significantly prefer this environment. I can get more stuff done for work. I feel like I'm more productive for society as well. I'm getting better pay. I have a more, liberally flexible actual schedule. I can get so much more created, done, and just my life has been so much lighter and better since I've left that old environment. Now, of course, as these things have changed over the course of the last year, when I applied for my new job, there was an option in the position. In fact, everybody who works at this company is eligible to receive a work MacBook Air. And when the time came and I signed the contract and I started working with them, I was using a Microsoft Surface Pro. Now, Microsoft Surface Pro is essentially a tablet, which is kind of also a laptop. It's the best mixture between, I think, a tablet and a laptop that you can get. And I've been using a Microsoft Surface Pro, I think, since 2016 when I first went to university, and I just absolutely love it. I watch Netflix on it when I'm cooking because it doesn't have a dedicated keyboard that's built into the thing. It's just much more portable. I don't mind if a little bit of grease, or dirt or flour gets on it. And so it's been on my go-to device. And I said at work, I was like, look, I've got my own thing. I don't need your laptop. That's, should be less cost for the company. I thought I was doing them a favor. But then problems started developing. After about 6 months, the laptop that I used, the tablet, was starting to overheat a little bit. It was getting loud. It would sometimes lag. And I thought, you know what? I have an opportunity here, right? I have an opportunity to receive a device which I'm otherwise wholeheartedly against. I hate the company and all these bits, but I'll give it a try. So I sent out an email. In fact, before I did this, I spoke to my buddy JJ. My buddy JJ's been, he's my best friend. He lived just across the street. I've known him all my life, and he's been on Apple products since the beginning. I called him up and I said, hey, I'm thinking about taking the work MacBook. Which one should I get? Is it important? I want to do maybe a little bit of rendering. I heard that these things can sort of do that. I had very low expectations. And he was like, yeah, dude, just take the base model. It will be amazing. M2 MacBook, it will blow everything out of the water. I didn't believe him one bit. So I was extremely skeptical. I didn't believe that this could, do the work that I was going to be testing it through. But nonetheless, I send the email and I get my M2 MacBook Air 256 gigs with 16 gigs of RAM. So I did ask for a RAM upgrade, knowing that I'd be doing some footage editing, not just for myself, but also for work-related things. And so I figured, this is a very minor upgrade that doesn't cost them a lot to add on top. I get the device, I set it up, and for 2 weeks I was lost. I didn't like the keyboard layout, I didn't like some of the gestures, a lot of the default system settings were missing. So it took me a while to get used to it. But once I got into the ecosystem, once I had sort of, nitty-grittied all the tiny details and the shortcuts and the apps that I wanted to use and the overall setup, I was blown away by just how intuitive it was to use, how better my workflow was. The only thing I miss from the tablet is the touchscreen. The touchscreen allows me to do certain work way faster because you're switching between two different monitors, you're copying certain text. It can be done way more efficiently if using a touchscreen on one device, but that's a very, very worthy sacrifice for all the other bits that came with it. What really changed my mind was when I rendered my first video. And I didn't just render any video, I rendered a 4K 2-hour-long podcast in 20 minutes. And I was blown away. I was blown away because the thing not just handled it, it didn't overheat, it didn't explode, it didn't shut down, it didn't, error code. It just did it. And whilst it was rendering it, I could still do regular work. It was still functioning just fine. And I was blown away that this tiny device, which doesn't actually cost that much, it's less than 2,000 euros or dollars, could do so much work. Now, not being a fan of the Apple ecosystem on the laptop is a lot different than not being used to the Apple ecosystem on the phone, because I use my phone for a lot more than just that. I like a micro SD card storage, I like having an aux cable, I like having customizability, I like having advanced instead of payable YouTube. There's a lot of different little tinkered things that I absolutely knew that the iPhone doesn't have, never will have, and I will miss them. But I said, let me take a gamble. In the worst case, what I'm getting is a device which has an extremely good camera and can be used for content creation, but also it can connect to the MacBook in a way that I haven't experienced before. And this is one of the revolutionary things that I never knew existed, because when you hate an ecosystem, when you despise a company, you become ignorant of it. And I was ignorant of the fact that AirDrop was a thing. Because when I heard AirDrop, I thought, oh yeah, it's like old school Bluetooth. Back in the day when I was a kid, you'd have a phone with buttons and all that, and you would send music to your friend via Bluetooth. And I thought that's what airdropping was. It was like you come up to a friend who has an iPhone and you have an iPhone, and to flex it, you send them something. Yes, that is AirDrop. But what also is AirDrop is that you take your phone, you record, raw footage in 4K, for example, and then you wirelessly plop it over to your MacBook and you can get straight into editing. No cables required, no waiting required. The camera I'm recording this video on, I'll have to turn it off, take the battery out, take the SD card out, put the SD card into a dedicated slot, which is on an extender that goes into a PC or the laptop, and then copy the files over. And it's a cumbersome process. It takes some time, it requires some tools, cables, whatnot, adapters. And so it's been a mind-changing thing realizing that I could use an iPhone to take footage and then import that footage to the editing computer immediately. And it doesn't stop there. See, the smallest thing that changed my mind, and I know that there are alternatives to this. I know that you could use a sticker or specific cases on all your devices to get this. But the fact that the iPhone has it built in, that is the MagSafe attachment. The fact that you can magnetically attach this thing to a mount, whether it's in your car or a tripod or for a webcam or for any kind of scenario, has been a mind-blowing experience. It sounds so simple, it sounds so banal, but when you use it, it is a potentially life-altering thing. I would not want to go back to using a phone without that attachment now. I use it in my car, I use it if I want to record some reels for Instagram. It's just a quality of life upgrade. Which begs the question, do I still hate Apple? I kind of do. I think the prices, specifically of iPhones, are ridiculous. I mean, it is overpriced. We're looking at now upwards of 1,500 just to purchase a device, which most people use for social media scrolling, right? Obviously, there's people like myself who have an ambition to create content, to create storylines, to create visual, inspiring things, to really go out there and try to tell something, and try to explain something, and try to showcase something. For those creators, I think these devices make sense. But I think for the regular normie, for the regular pleb just going about life, I think these devices are utterly overpriced, because a 1,500 iPhone does the exact same thing as a 250 euro Android would. In fact, the Android might even be a way better option, because it will allow you to save money through not having to use certain subscriptions, through having more storage available, through repairs being cheaper, more affordable. And it got me thinking, where does the consumerism end? When does it end where you think, because look, what I've done is I've purchased the iPhone 15 Pro. And I only waited for the 15 Pro because I didn't want to use a lightning cable. I mean, it might sound like a stupid thing, but when you have everything working with USB-C, it doesn't really make sense to go for a device that has a different cable. And then I have to go about with a lightning cable and search for somebody who has that adapter. It's way easier if all your devices simply connect via the same cable. And thank God that European Union is smart enough to have now enforced that law to all devices across the world. Now, like I said, for most people, I don't think it makes sense. I think even myself, I would sometimes be better off if I had a flip phone. I think sometimes people would be happier if they didn't have access to the internet. We might even become more connected if we were forced to spend time with our friends when we are with our friends, with our loved ones, with our partners, with our families. Because so many times what happens is you'll have two people that are dating sitting at a dinner and they're both on their phones taking pictures of the food, they're sitting on the couch and one of them's trying to watch a movie and the other one is just scrolling through TikTok. These types of things are becoming more and more common. And that's partially why I hate device makers, not just Apple, but Samsung and Microsoft and everybody combined, because the accessibility of these devices, I think, has created an upward rise of anxiety and depression and ADHD, and we keep comparing ourselves to people who, in real life maybe are not as successful, are not as happy. We're always trying to sell a story. I mean, the truth is it's all curated. When I choose a post to put on Instagram, that is heavily curated. I carefully choose which photo, I edit it a little bit, you add some contrast, add some saturation so my skin doesn't look too white. You do all these tiny little bit of tweaks. You get a nice description going, you ship it at a specific time. It's all very, very curated. Now, Instagram stories are maybe a bit of a different thing because it's like, it's in the moment. It's like, hey, I'm just baking some bread right now. Let me take you along for the journey, that kind of thing. These videos, for example, of which I've uploaded nearly 52, only one of them actually had a script, and that wasn't a script, it was just something I wrote and I wanted to read. None of them have a system created, all of them work the same way. I just stand here, I look into the camera, and I talk about a topic from the top of my head. I haven't prepared for this, I didn't think about it, I didn't prep it, I didn't create a hook in the beginning. These videos are, like I said, in the beginning, they were created for me. And along the way, I saw that there is a demand, that there is some love, that there's other people out there that require some of the same assistance or guidance or tips, tricks, or just sort of broaden their horizons just a little bit. And so the question that I had was, do I still hate this company? Do I still hate Apple? Do I still hate the ecosystem they've created? I now look at it differently. I think I've become a little bit more accepting of things in life. I'm trying to give things a try, say yes to a lot of opportunities and perhaps risk getting burnt. Perhaps in the future I'll take some deals that might cause me to potentially have some issues. But I feel like these are experiences that you want to go through. I want to look back at life and see this beautiful range of progress. Because the video that I uploaded, in January last year, at the beginning of this series, if I watched it now, I'd think it's a little bit cringe. This video I'm uploading today will look cringe in about a year. But that's part of the process, is if I looked back and I didn't think it was cringe, then I would have become scared that I've already peaked. I constantly want to look forward and upwards towards the next thing that's bigger, better, and brighter. And since I have a desire to create content and I have a desire to get good quality podcasts made next year, that I want to create various courses, that I want to get access to people of information that they actually, I believe, need to improve their lives and just live healthier and better, then the ability to connect a device to the laptop, to get the ease of functionality, to get high quality footage, high quality audio, to get it all simplistically munched and bunched into one or two devices, then I have to say that I no longer hate Apple. I'm just a little bit more indifferent to them. I still don't agree with a lot of the things these companies are doing, but the reality is that the world isn't perfect. And even for a perfectionist like myself, the ideal device will never exist. The ideal job will never exist. The ideal woman will never exist. That's what I learned, is that nothing is perfect. You'll have to sort of make do with what there is. And you yourself should strive for personal perfection instead of perfection of devices or people or jobs or things or outside forces. It really does come back to the fact that if you want to change the world, you've got to start within, and the world changes. And I know that you probably didn't think we were going to go this way when I said that I hate Apple and this was going to be a video about not so much self-improvement, but I think there's self-improvement in everything. You just have to look that little extra bit deeper. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one. Safe flying.